Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the Dream Painter, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight, and what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. There are nights when the stars don't just shine, they breathe. When every glimmer in the sky feels like a heartbeat, quiet, patient, waiting for something to awaken within the darkness. And in one such night, beneath a sky painted with slow-moving clouds and fragments of silver light, a figure stirred. He was known as Lyran, the Dream Painter. His home was not made of stone or wood, but of echoes. Walls that shimmered like liquid glass, a floor that rippled with soft color whenever he walked. Everything here, the easel, the brushes, the air itself existed halfway between sleep and wakefulness. This was the dream realm, the place where forgotten thoughts gathered before dawn reclaimed them. Lyran rose slowly, stretching the stiffness of silence from his hands. His brush waited beside him, long, slender, and alive with faint light, as if it had been dipped into the heart of the moon. When he held it, tiny motes of starlight drifted down like snow, dissolving before they reached the ground. He spoke softly to himself. The night feels restless. Perhaps the dreams have lost their rhythm again. He stepped closer to his canvas, a great sheet of open air stretched across nothingness. At first it looked empty, but when he tilted his head, faint lines of color shimmered within it, sketches of places half remembered, people halfway between thought and memory. Every night, Lyran painted new dreams for sleeping souls across countless worlds. He didn't know their names, only their feelings. Loneliness, hope, laughter, the longing to be free. He turned those feelings into colors. He painted until the stars began to dim, and his creations would drift away into sleepers' minds like dust on a breeze. But tonight, something was missing. Lyran paused. There a sound he had never heard before in this still realm. It wasn't a melody or even a whisper. It was movement. Fast, pulsing, alive, the sound of something running. He looked across the dream horizon and for a moment saw only fog. But then the fog bent as though the air itself had been cut in half. A streak of blue light tore through the mist, brilliant, pure, unstoppable. It wasn't falling. It was racing. Lyran's heart lifted in his chest. That color, he whispered. That speed. He had painted countless dreams, yet none carried that shade, not the hue of sadness, nor joy, nor even the peace of dawn. This was something else, a living rhythm, color that refused to stay still. He dipped his brush into the space between his fingers, pulling a thread of silver from the air. When he touched the canvas, it trembled. The streak of light turned sharply, as if hearing him. And suddenly it wasn't far away, it was here. The light condensed into a figure standing at the edge of Lyran's studio. Its form shimmered, made of glowing motion. He could barely make out the shape, the curve of limbs, the outline of a head, but its body radiated speed itself, every edge flickering, like waves of air heated by the sun. "Who are you?" Lyran asked gently, lowering his brush. The figure tilted its head, voice soft but filled with vitality. "I am what the wind dreams of when it sleeps." Lyran blinked. "A dream? Of the wind?" "Not exactly," the figure smiled. "You might say, I am the echo left behind when freedom outruns itself." Its laughter rolled like thunder made of joy, not loud, but vast. And as it laughed, the blue glow around it shifted, forming ripples that illuminated the walls. Every reflection painted itself with motion spirals, arcs, rings of light. Lyran felt something stir within him. It was curiosity, yes, but also a faint ache, a recognition. He realized what was missing from his paintings. Every dream he had ever painted stood still. This one, this shade of blue, refused to stop moving. The dream painter watched as the figure began to trace circles around the studio, its footsteps leaving glowing trails. Everywhere it passed, the air hummed softly, like the pluck of 1,000 invisible strings. Colors bloomed not from the brush, but from motion itself. Lyron lifted his brush instinctively and began to paint along with the rhythm. He didn't choose the colors, they appeared as feelings. Each stroke followed the runner's pattern, wide, flowing curves, sweeping arcs, flashes of light that disappeared before they were complete. "You paint what you dream," said the figure, its voice echoing as it moved. "But tonight, you're dreaming what you paint." The realization made Lyron pause mid-stroke. The paint on his brush shimmered between shades of blue and silver, never settling on one color. Mom, he was no longer creating the dream was creating itself. "What are you called?" Lyron asked softly. The figure stopped for the first time, standing in the circle of its own light. Names didn't seem to matter here, yet Lyron wanted to understand. "I am the sound between seconds," it said finally, "but you can call me what you feel." Lyron thought for a moment. He watched the pulse of blue, the gentle rhythm beneath it, the same rhythm he'd felt from the very start. He smiled faintly. "Then I'll call you Rush." The runner nodded once, and the entire studio rippled as if the dream itself had accepted the name. Rush glided closer to the painter. The air around them shimmered. "You've forgotten what motion feels like," Rush said, voice now calm. "You paint stillness because you think peace means silence. But peace." He gestured at the horizon, where the stars pulsed faintly in rhythm with his glow. "Peace is rhythm. Even the quietest dream must move." Lyron lowered his gaze. He had never thought of it that way. He always feared motion and feared his brush might lose control. His strokes might blur. But now, standing before this living current of light, he felt alive. He dipped his brush again, and this time didn't plan his next stroke. He let the motion carry him. Each sweep of the brush made his surroundings bloom with color-pale lavender clouds, rivers of gentle turquoise, petals of soft gold floating upward like glowing leaves. Rush began to move again, not running this time, but gliding around him in a slow orbit. Wherever he passed, streaks of blue followed, intertwining with Lyron's paint to create harmony. Brush in motion, painter in rhythm working together. The air filled with the faint hum of energy. Every color sang, and every sound shimmered into color. For the first time in ages, Lyron forgot the weight of his solitude. Then suddenly the hum changed. It deepened, thickened, turning into a low vibration. The stars above them flickered. Rush stopped mid-stride. He looked toward the horizon, a faint line of gray now creeping through the blue mist. "That's strange," he murmured. Lyron tilted his head. "What is it?" "The dream is slowing," Rush said. "Something's holding it back." Lyron frowned. "Dreams don't slow. They fade or change, but they don't stop." Rush closed his eyes, listening. There's something missing in the rhythm, a note gone silent. He raised his hand, and faint orbs appeared around them, 6 tiny lights, each one glowing in a different color. They hovered for a moment before spinning into the distance, forming a ring in the air. "They used to sing together," Rush whispered. "Now one of them sleeps." Lyron watched the dimmest light, a pale green orb pulsing weakly at the edge of the circle. Its glow flickered like a heartbeat struggling to return. He felt a sudden weight in his chest, an ache that wasn't his own. "What does it mean?" he asked. Rush's eyes glowed brighter. "It means the dream's heart has forgotten how to move." The words hung in the air like a quiet thunderclap. Lyron gripped his brush tighter. "Then we remind it," he said. The two figures turned toward the dark horizon. The fog that once seemed harmless now rolled like a slow tide, swallowing the stars. In its depths, Lyron could almost hear the absence of rhythm, the deep, heavy quiet of dreams too tired to breathe. Rush placed a hand on Lyron's shoulder, and his smile returned confident, bright, alive. Let's paint the sound of motion again. And together they stepped into the colorless fog. The fog rose slowly, curling like old parchment around them. Lyron felt it against his skin, cold, weightless, whispering secrets too faint to catch. Rush moved ahead, his light dimmed to a gentle shimmer, enough to guide the way but not disturb the quiet. Each step they took left faint blue prints on the invisible ground, pulsing softly before fading into mist. Lyron tried to paint as they walked, brushing strokes of color through the air, but the hues dissolved before they could form shapes. "It's like painting on smoke," he murmured. Rush didn't answer immediately. He crouched low, touching the fog with his fingertips. The blue light around him flickered. "This isn't ordinary silence," he said finally. "It's a silence that remembers. Every sound that ever faded gathers here." Lyron hesitated. "You mean forgotten dreams?" Rush nodded. "Exactly. Dreams that lost their rhythm, moments that never got to finish their song." The painter felt a pang deep in his chest. The idea of abandoned dreams always hurt him. Every artist feared that creation left incomplete, forgotten before it could breathe. He touched his brush to the ground again, and this time, instead of color, it released a low hum. The sound was faint, like the first note of a lullaby played from another world. The fog trembled. Rush looked up sharply. "Do that again!" Lyron obeyed, brushing another stroke through the air. The hum grew louder, spiraling upward in soft waves. Within the mist, faint shapes began to appear, outlines of old dreams, floating like shadows of paintings washed by rain. A child chasing a glowing kite. A tree whose leaves shimmered like broken glass. A bird with wings of sunlight, flapping once before dissolving into mist again. "They're beautiful," Lyron whispered. Rush smiled faintly. They were, until silence took them. He moved forward, faster now, his energy rippling through the air. Everywhere his light passed, the forgotten shapes shivered, colors returning like breath after long sleep. Lyron followed, painting beside him, his brush tracing arcs of silver and soft coral, weaving through Rush's trails of blue. Together, their work became a duet. The dream responded. The fog began to thin, revealing faint horizons ahead. Lyron's pulse quickened. "We're waking them." Rush's grin widened. "No, they're waking us." The silence around them began to move, not loudly, but with the rhythm of something enormous turning in its sleep. The stars reappeared above, but now they pulsed in patterns, matching the beat of Rush's footsteps. Every stroke of Lyron's brush and every stride Rush took sent gentle waves across the dreamscape. The ground shimmered with living color, each tone glowing like liquid glass. Lyron paused and looked around, realizing that he was no longer standing in fog. They were standing on an ocean, one made of still water reflecting an upside-down sky. Every ripple carried fragments of dreams, and the color beneath the surface shimmered with impossible hues. Blues that bled into violet, golds that breathed like sunrise, greens soft as sighs. Rush stepped forward, unafraid, his feet barely disturbing the surface. "This is the mirror of motion," he said, "the place between movement and reflection." Lyron's voice was barely a whisper. "It's beautiful." Rush turned, the glow in his eyes steady. "Beauty isn't the goal. It's the rhythm that keeps it alive." Lyron watched as the runner raised his hand and drew a slow circle in the air. At once rings of light appeared, rippling outward like echoes from a bell. "This was once the heart of the dream realm," Rush said softly, "but its pulse has slowed. Listen." Lyron closed his eyes. Beneath the stillness, he could hear it, a faint heartbeat, steady but weak. And in that heartbeat, he felt something calling, not a voice, but an emotion. It was longing. The painter's hand trembled. "It's asking for color," he said. Rush nodded. "Then give it what you have." Lyron stepped to the water's edge. His reflection looked back at him, shimmering in countless fragments. He dipped his brush into the surface. Instead of water, it felt like touching sound, a vibration that climbed through his arm and into his chest. When he lifted the brush, it glowed with all the colors of his dreams, the soft pinks of joy, the amber of curiosity, the deep indigo of rest. He took a slow breath, then painted a single line across the air. The world responded instantly. The sky rippled, the ocean sang. The note he painted rose and fell like a living thing. The heart of the dream realm pulsed brighter, stronger, as if remembering the rhythm it had lost. Rush moved beside him, his light synchronizing with the pulse. Each motion he made traced circles that intertwined with Lyran's strokes. Together they painted and moved, creating an endless pattern brush, step, hum, echo. The dream realm began to awaken. After a while, Lyran lowered his brush, breathing softly. The ocean beneath them had turned clear as glass, reflecting an endless web of light stretching in all directions. Rush stood silently, his glow dimmed now to a faint blue halo. He looked at Lyran, something thoughtful in his eyes. "You've painted this world for years," he said quietly. "But you've never stepped inside your own dreams, have you?" Lyran hesitated. "My work isn't for me." Rush tilted his head. "Maybe that's the problem." The words hung in the air. Lyran didn't answer. He thought of the countless nights he'd painted dreams for others, scenes of peace, of laughter, of freedom, yet had never painted one for himself. He wondered what his own dream would look like. Would it be still and quiet? Or would it run across the sky like Rush? The silence between them softened. Rush turned his gaze toward the horizon, where a faint golden light now touched the edge of the water. "That's not dawn," Lyran said. "No," Rush replied, smiling faintly. "That's the memory of it." They stood together, watching the horizon breathe. The light grew brighter, forming shapes, faint outlines of mountains, forests, rivers. Dreams being born. Lyran dipped his brush again, slowly this time. His movements were lighter now, more confident. He painted not from duty but from curiosity, letting the rhythm guide him. Each stroke summoned more light, and every color blended with Rush's trails until the entire sky above them looked alive. The air itself felt like it was humming a song without words. Rush stepped beside him, whispering, "Now you're painting what you feel." Lyran smiled softly. "And I feel alive." For a moment, the dream realm was pure balance motion and stillness entwined, painter and runner in perfect harmony. But then, something shifted. From the far edge of the horizon came a tremor subtle but undeniable. The reflections on the ocean rippled violently, colors bending out of shape. Rush's eyes flashed. The silence is returning. Lyran felt the vibration in his chest, heavy, cold. The hum of life began to distort into static, like the sound of breath caught in fear. "What do we do?" he asked. Rush stared into the distance. "We run." Before Lyran could respond, Rush shot forward, a streak of blue lightning slicing across the dream ocean. The surface bent under his speed, trails of light spiraling outward like rivers of glass. Lyran followed, painting in his wake, each brushstroke forming bridges of color that carried him above the collapsing surface. They raced side by side, one of speed, one of art weaving light through darkness. The silence tried to swallow them, forming walls of gray mist that rose like tidal waves. But each time it closed in, Rush's momentum shattered it, and Lyran's colors sealed the cracks with radiant hues. It was a dance, a chase, a rhythm of creation, fighting against stillness. As they ran, Lyran began to notice something strange. The silence wasn't only chasing them, it was calling to him. In its voice, he heard echoes of his own fears, the nights he'd stopped painting early, afraid his work wasn't good enough, the mornings he watched his dreams fade and told himself they weren't worth finishing. The silence was his reflection. He slowed, the realization hitting him like a weight. Rush turned mid-motion, stopping just ahead. "Don't stop now!" Lyran's voice trembled. "It's not just silence. It's me." Rush's eyes softened. "Then paint it." Lyran blinked. "What?" "Paint what you fear. Give it color, and it will remember how to move." The painter's heart pounded. He lifted his brush, staring into the waves of gray mist approaching. His hands shook, but he forced himself to draw. A single stroke, pale gray at first, then deepening into violet. Another streaks of gold, of crimson, of deep blue. He painted the silence as he felt it, heavy, vast, full of longing. And then something extraordinary happened. The mist began to move. It didn't vanish, it shifted, its shape changing into waves of soft silver, swirling like clouds in motion. The stillness was gone. The silence now had rhythm. Rush exhaled slowly, his glow flaring bright again. "That's it," he said softly. "That's what I meant. Even fear can dance." Lyron lowered his brush, his chest light. He felt as if he'd just taken the first breath in years. The dream ocean steadied. The colors softened. Rush stood beside him, the last of the fog fading into silver dust that drifted upward into the stars. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Only the gentle sound of waves as not real water, but the echo of dreams exhaling. Finally, Lyron turned to Rush. "What happens now?" Rush smiled, looking toward the horizon, where the gold light had grown into a full sunrise. "Now," he said, "we see where the rhythm leads next." Lyron nodded, gazing at the horizon, the canvas of infinite color stretching before them. He didn't feel like a creator anymore. He felt like a part of something living. A rhythm that connected brush and motion, color and sound. The night deepened into stillness. Every brushstroke Lyron had left behind shimmered faintly on the canvas of dreams. Each hue, violet, silver, pale rose, hung suspended in the sky like small constellations, frozen mid-song. And then a sound. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't even a step. It was the kind of sound that lived between sounds, like a heartbeat echoing across the folds of space. It came softly at first, then again, closer this time. Tap, tap, whir. The ground beneath Lyron's feet rippled, a vibration spreading outward as though invisible footsteps were sketching themselves across the dreamscape. He turned, brush poised, gaze steady. From the horizon, a streak of blue light. At first it looked like a comet that had taken a wrong turn and forgotten how to fade. But it moved not across the heavens, it raced on them. Each motion bent the stars backward like reeds in wind. Lyron squinted. The figure wasn't a blur at all. It was a person, or rather, something shaped like one. He could see the outline, sleek, fluid, alive with energy. And as it slowed, light condensed around it until form emerged a runner, wrapped in a soft aura of sapphire motion. The runner stopped a few paces from him, the starlight pooling at their feet like melted glass. Lyron's breath caught. Who are you?" The runner tilted their head, eyes bright with electric calm. "Names fade where dreams begin," the voice replied, smooth as a current of wind. "But you can call me the one who runs the horizon." Lyron lowered his brush slightly. "You run the horizon?" A half smile curved across the runner's face. "I am the horizon, sometimes, or its echo. Depends who's dreaming." Their voice carried an energy that wasn't loud but alive, like listening to a melody you somehow remembered before hearing it. For a while, neither spoke. The dreamscape around them hummed in sync with the runner's pulse. Stars pulsed in rhythm. The air shimmered. Then Lyron said softly, "I've been painting the colors of dreams, trying to find one I lost. Something called Blue Rush." At that, the runner's light brightened, as if amused. "Blue Rush," they repeated. "Ah, the sound of wind made visible." Their form flickered, blurring slightly at the edges. "You're close. You just don't know what it sounds like yet." Lyron tilted his head. "Sounds like? Every color has a sound," the runner said. "Yours hums quietly, trapped in the silence between thoughts. You paint with it, but you don't listen to it." Lyron frowned, uncertain. "Then teach me to listen," the runner smiled. then keep up. Without warning, they took off. A streak of blue light tore through the sky and the dream itself shifted, space bending into a road of luminescent waves. Lyron gasped, clutching his brush, and leapt forward. The moment his foot touched the surface, it sang. The stars beneath him chimed like struck bells, and he felt himself drawn forward, not running but gliding, his movements following the beat of the runner's rhythm. They raced across galaxies of sound. Each step left behind trails of melody that bloomed like flowers made of resonance. The sky below and above folded into one. It was motion, pure, limitless motion, yet perfectly serene. Lyron laughed without realizing. This is painting. The runner glanced back, voice rippling through the current of color. No, this is becoming your painting. Their speed grew faster, but it wasn't frantic. It was the kind of speed that felt free. Every motion turned into art. Every echo became shape. Lyron could see his brushstroke trails spiraling behind him, threads of violet and silver weaving into grand murals of dreamlight. For the first time, he wasn't creating from thought. He was creating from feeling. They reached the edge of what looked like the universe's mirror. It wasn't water, but something liquid in form and infinite in depth. The runner slowed to a stop, stepping lightly atop its glowing surface. Do you see, the runner said, gesturing to the endless reflection below? Every dream is a world looking back at itself, but few realize that they're both painter and paint. Lyron gazed down. The reflection showed not himself, but 1,000 versions of him, each holding a brush dipped in a different hue. Some smiled, some wept, some looked exhausted. All of them painted the same horizon, yet none painted it the same way. I've been painting for years, Lyron said quietly, but I never thought dreams could paint back. They do, the runner replied, pacing gently along the glowing sea. Every time you finish a piece, a dream somewhere wakes, and sometimes when a dream fades, a color disappears from your world. It's all connected. Lyron stared. And you, what are you, really? The runner's smile softened. A reminder, a rhythm given shape. Once I ran through every dream, bridging thought and heartbeat. But when stillness grew stronger, I began to fade. The world of dreams slows without motion, just as hearts fade without hope. He stepped closer, the glow around him dimming slightly. That's why you're here, painter. You felt the world growing quiet. You came to listen. Lyron looked at his brush, its handle faintly pulsing in tune with the runner's glow. So the sound I've been chasing was me, the runner finished gently. Or rather, what I represent. For a long moment, only the hum of light filled the space. Lyron could feel the pulse in his chest sinking with the rhythm of the stars. He didn't need to understand it fully. He simply felt it. Show me more, he whispered. The runner's eyes glowed brighter. Then follow the rhythm until it stops, and paint what silence leaves behind. They took off again, faster than before. But this time, Lyron was ready. The wind of color rushed past him, filling his senses with cascading notes of sapphire and silver. He felt the dream expanding outward, growing vast enough to hold every possibility. As they raced, fragments of forgotten dreams drifted beside them. A feather made of light, a clock that ticked backward, a tiny paper bird flying through constellations. Each fragment glowed as Lyron brushed against it, leaving behind traces of color that joined their wake. The runner called back, voice echoing, "These are echoes of unfinished dreams. Everyone you pass, someone once began to imagine, but never dared to complete." Lyron slowed beside a floating sketch of a door drawn in mist. He extended his brush, touching its surface. Instantly it burst into form, solid, bright, opening into a small memory. A child painting with their hands, laughing. Lyron smiled. So, even forgotten dreams still live? Yes, said the runner, slowing beside him. Dreams are patient. They wait for someone to remember them. He glanced up at the horizon, glowing now like a pulse of gold through blue. That's why we keep running. Not to escape, but to carry what others leave behind. Lyron felt something stir deep in his chest, a mix of peace and awe. For the first time in what felt like lifetimes, he understood why his art mattered. It wasn't for beauty alone, it was for connection. As the realization settled in, the starlight around them began to ripple. The dream world seemed to inhale. The runner's aura grew brighter, reflecting off Lyron's brush, merging their light until it became one seamless hue. Lyron gasped softly. "What's happening?" "The colors are aligning," said the runner, voice calm. "You're remembering how to move without fear." The world shifted again. They were now running along a field of crystal reeds that sang when brushed by the wind. Each stem chimed a different pitch, and together they formed a melody that felt alive. Lyron let the rhythm carry him, his brush tracing the air in broad arcs, painting as he moved. Colors leapt from the brush like sparks, fusing with the crystal tones to form glowing waves of living sound. The runner matched his pace beside him, a streak of motion too fluid to be captured. "Now you're beginning to hear it," he said. "The harmony of motion." Lyron smiled through the wind. "I thought painting was about stillness, capturing a moment." The runner shook his head lightly. "True art isn't captured, it's followed. Just like dreams. You don't hold them, you chase them until they become you." The sky shifted from deep blue to radiant violet. The stars pulsed like heartbeats. The runner slowed again, stopping at the crest of a glowing ridge. Below them stretched an ocean made entirely of starlight. "This is the place where dreams remember themselves," he said. "Everything that ever moved, every thought that ever shone, passes through here." Lyron stared in quiet awe. He could feel the pulse of 1,000 stories humming beneath the surface, waiting. He whispered, "What happens if we fall in?" The runner smiled faintly. "Then we remember what we were meant to become." The starlit ocean rippled below them, alive yet calm, each wave carrying reflections of countless dreams. Faces, colors, fragments of motion that had once belonged to other dreamers. Lyron gazed down, eyes wide. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "It feels alive." The runner's voice floated through the hush, a melody hidden within words. "Because it is. This ocean isn't made of water, it's made of memory. Every dream ever dreamt returns here when it fades. Every song unsung, every color unfinished. They sleep, waiting for someone brave enough to stir them." Lyron knelt at the edge, dipping his brush into the glowing surface. The bristles shimmered, drawing up liquid light that pulsed like veins of sound. When he lifted it, droplets hung in the air suspended, humming softly, forming small spheres of blue radiance. He whispered, "They hum." The runner smiled faintly. "They always have. You're just listening differently now." The droplets rose higher, orbiting Lyron's brush like tiny moons. Each sphere vibrated, harmonizing faintly with the others. And then, just for a heartbeat, they began to sing. A soft, crystalline tone filled the air, gentle as lullaby wind. Lyron's pulse matched the rhythm. He watched in awe as his brush absorbed the sound, threads of melody flowing into its handle like rivers of light. "This sound," Lyron began, "it's the color I've been searching for." The runner nodded. "The blue rush, the tone of motion, memory, and peace. You found it not in stillness, but in movement." He walked onto the water's surface, each step leaving a glowing ring behind. "Come, there's more to learn beneath the waves." Lyron hesitated. "Beneath?" The runner reached out a hand. The dream painter took it, and the ocean accepted them both. They sank into the dream water, not falling, but gliding. Colors shifted around them, cascading like curtains of liquid sound. There were no bubbles, no need to breathe, only rhythm. Each beat of Lyron's heart painted ripples of light through the dark. All around them, dreams drifted like slow-moving creatures, whales made of melody, coral reefs woven from forgotten stories, schools of light fish darting between invisible symphonies. Lyran whispered, "It's like the universe remembering itself." The runner's voice replied, soft but clear, "Dreams never die. They only wait. What you see are pieces of imagination sleeping until a new dreamer awakens them. You and I are their messengers." They descended further, where the water grew dense with color, deep indigo and luminous gold, intertwining like two halves of breath. Ahead, the light gathered into a whirlpool, steady and slow. From its center rose something vast. Lyran froze. What? What is that?" The runner's expression softened, reverent. The heart of harmony. It was a cluster of immense crystals, 6 of them, hovering in a perfect circle, humming in layered chords. Each crystal radiated a different tone. One deep and warm like Earth's pulse, one bright and sharp like sunrise, one cool and distant as moonlight, one gentle and tender as sleep itself, one resonant with laughter, and one faint flickering holding the color of sorrow. Together they formed a symphony of light, yet something was missing. The 6th crystal, the dim one, trembled weakly, unable to hold its note. Lyran could feel the imbalance. The sound was haunting, incomplete. He turned to the runner. "Why is it fading?" "Because one dreamer forgot," the runner said. "Long ago, these crystals sang in harmony. They balanced all dreaming color, sound, rhythm, and rest. But when fear crept into hearts, when silence grew stronger than wonder, one crystal dimmed. Its song became lost." Lyran floated closer, eyes filled with empathy. The dim crystal pulsed faintly at his presence, responding to his warmth. He whispered, "Can it be healed?" The runner nodded slowly. "Yes, but only by memory, by remembering joy, even inside stillness." Lyran gripped his brush. He felt the pulse of color within it, the rhythm he'd found above. The blue rush. He raised it, and the surrounding waters shimmered as if aware. "Then let's paint it back," he said. Lyran's first brushstroke swept across the void like a ribbon of music. The stroke broke apart into orbs of light, floating gently toward the dim crystal. The water around them vibrated faintly at first, then stronger, resonating through his bones. Each movement felt heavier than air, slower but deeper, as if every color carried a heartbeat. He painted arcs of cerulean and violet, each one singing a note. The runner joined him, racing around the crystals in circles of motion, his steps leaving behind trails of rhythm. Together, sound and motion intertwined, brushstroke and footstep blending, until the sea itself began to glow brighter. Lyran whispered under his breath as he worked, "Motion is sound. Sound is color. Color is memory." The runner's voice echoed faintly, "And memory is life." The dim crystal pulsed again once, twice like a sigh, remembering how to breathe. Its tone began to hum, faint and trembling, then stronger, fuller, warmer. As it did, the entire formation erupted in light. Lyran shielded his eyes, but he could feel the warmth on his face, gentle, like the sun after rain. The 6 crystals sang now in perfect harmony. The sound was indescribable, a choir of oceans, the echo of galaxies being born, the hush of dreams, finally at peace. The runner slowed, his light glowing steady now, calmer. "You've done it," he said quietly. "The heart of harmony breathes again." Lyran floated, eyes wide in wonder. "It's so alive." The runner nodded. "It always was, but sometimes the world needs a painter to remind it to feel again." For a moment neither spoke. The water shimmered with the reflection of their joined light blue and silver dancing like dawn across an endless sky. Then the crystals slowly began to drift apart, dissolving into threads of light that rose back toward the surface. Lyran reached out instinctively, catching one thread between his fingers. It hummed softly, coiling around his wrist before sinking into his skin. "What was that?" he asked. "Memory," the runner replied. "Each time harmony is restored, the dreamer who awakens it carries part of its rhythm forward." Lyron's pulse glowed faintly through his wrist, blue light threading his veins. He could feel something awakening inside him, a quiet strength, steady and serene. When they rose back to the surface, the ocean of starlight was calm again. The stars above were brighter, clearer, each one pulsing gently, like tiny hearts. Lyron breathed deeply, though breath was not needed here. It feels different now. The runner looked at him, smiling softly. It is. The dreams above will shine more vividly now. Sleepers will rest easier. You gave them a melody again. Lyron turned his gaze upward, watching as threads of light rose into constellations. Every note of harmony they had restored became a star reborn. He realized with awe each star was someone's dream, rekindled. I didn't know, Lyron whispered. I didn't know dreams were connected like this. They always have been, said the runner. Every dreamer, every artist, every quiet thought connects to this ocean. When one forgets to dream, another picks up the rhythm. That's why harmony always returns even after silence. They stood there for a while, the painter and the runner watching the horizon pulse with gentle blue light. The runner eventually spoke again softly. The next place we must go lies deeper within the waking world, a city where silence took root, draining the colors from its people's sleep. It is there that you will need your new rhythm most. Lyron's heart quickened. Will I be able to help them? The runner's gaze held kindness. You already are helping them. Every dream restored ripples outward into waking hearts. But yes, you must go. The silence will not break itself. The wind began to stir again, forming a path of light across the horizon. The runner turned toward it, motion smooth as moonlight. Lyron followed. His brush pulsed faintly, echoing the rhythm of harmony within him. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Behind him, the ocean whispered in tones of gratitude, carrying his name across eternity. Ahead, the runner's light curved like a promise, leading him toward the city beneath the sleep. And though no words were spoken, Lyron felt them resonate within his heart. The sound of footsteps in the starlight is not just motion. It is the memory of color finding its way home. The horizon stretched like a living ribbon of silver blue, rippling with the remnants of melody from the starlit ocean. Lyron followed the runner along that path of light, neither above nor below, but between all worlds, where dream and waking overlapped like breath and silence. The stars faded behind them, replaced by something else. A faint green glow rose ahead, pulsing through the fog. It wasn't the cold light of distant suns. It was warmer, steadier, almost alive. Lyron felt the hum before he saw its source. It vibrated through his chest like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. The air feels heavier, he whispered. The runner nodded. You're feeling resonance. Every world has a rhythm that keeps its dreams alive. This one, he gestured ahead, has forgotten how to listen to itself. As they moved forward, the path began to change. The glowing road beneath their feet broke apart into floating fragments of mirror glass. Each shard reflected scenes of forgotten places, villages swallowed by mist, gardens frozen mid-bloom, skies without motion. Lyron watched in quiet awe. They're beautiful, but empty. They're echoes, said the runner softly, remnants of harmony lost. He stopped suddenly. Do you hear that? Lyron listened. At first, only wind. Then, beneath it, a faint tone, long and low, like a hum from deep within the earth. He turned toward the sound, and there it was, rising out of the mist like an ancient temple carved of pure crystal. 6 pillars stood in a circle, each carved from a different gemstone, their light weaving through the fog like colored silk. At the center lay a suspended sphere of green energy, turning slowly, breathing like a living heart. Lyron exhaled in wonder. It's singing. The runner's tone grew reverent. The emerald core, the first dream that learned how to echo itself. Once it held all colors in harmony. Now it beats alone. They stepped closer. Each pillar hummed at a different pitch, but none aligned. The result was discordant, a melody fractured, yearning to complete itself but unable to find rhythm. Lyron could feel the imbalance in his bones. It hurts to listen. Yes, the runner murmured, because it remembers what it was. He turned toward Lyron. The harmony you helped awaken in the sea, it's connected to this place. The heart of harmony's light traveled here, but it cannot root unless the emerald core learns its own song again. Lyron's fingers tightened on his brush. Then I'll paint it back into rhythm. He approached the first pillar, the emerald one, and touched it gently with his brush. The moment bristles met surface, the tone shifted. A faint ripple of light spread outward, forming patterns in the air like floating calligraphy. Each mark was a sound, each sound a fragment of memory. Lyron watched, mesmerized. It's showing me dreams. The runner stepped closer, his blue aura illuminating the designs. Every crystal carries the echo of a feeling. Emerald holds hope, but hope has been silent too long. Lyron dipped his brush into the glowing reflection of the pillar and began to paint. He didn't choose color, the emerald chose him. His strokes formed winding vines of green light, curling upward into the air, wrapping around the pillars like tendrils of rebirth. As he painted, visions bloomed in the mist, children chasing each other through sunlight, trees swaying to invisible music, rivers singing softly to the stones they touched. Lyron smiled faintly through his focus. It's remembering. The runner circled around him, moving fast, his motion generating currents of wind that lifted the painted vines higher. Their energy merged paint and rhythm, weaving into one living chord. The sound changed. The discord softened, replaced by a single clear tone, pure, resonant, deep with peace. The runner slowed, his eyes reflecting the glow. That's it, the emerald harmony. You've awakened it. Lyron lowered his brush. It wasn't me. It wanted to be heard. He looked up at the remaining pillars, ruby, sapphire, amethyst, topaz, and onyx, each still dark, waiting. The runner followed his gaze. They each hold their own memory. Hope was only the first. Lyron felt a weight in his chest, not heavy, but sacred. Then we'll wake them all. They began with the ruby pillar. Its surface was warm, glowing faintly like an ember struggling to relight. When Lyron brushed against it, a wave of heat passed through him, not painful, but full of longing. The ruby's hum was erratic, sharp at first, then breaking off into silence. Lyron tilted his head. This one feels like heartbreak. The runner nodded. Ruby carries the memory of heart, of passion and kindness. When hearts close themselves to one another, its melody fractured. Lyron took a deep breath. He dipped his brush again, this time letting the emerald glow mingle with the ruby's light. His strokes became broader, more emotional. Red light blossomed around them, swirling through the air like petals caught in wind. With each motion, Lyron thought of connection, of the laughter of friends, of gentle words exchanged between strangers, of warmth that needed no reason. As he painted, the ruby began to pulse. Its broken tones steadied, deepened, and joined the emerald's hum in perfect fifth harmony. The sound was breathtaking, a duet of green and red, earth and fire, calm and courage. Lyron smiled through his tears. It's beautiful. The runner's expression softened. Because it's real. Heart and hope always find each other when they're allowed to breathe. They moved to the next pillar, sapphire. Cold to the touch, its tone echoed like waves striking distant shores. Lyron's brush hesitated. This one feels far away. Sapphire remembers trust, the runner explained. But distance has dulled its song. Too many dreams forgot how to trust the current they were born from. Lyron looked down at his reflection in the pillar's glass. For the briefest moment, he saw himself painting alone, nights spent in silence, doubting his colors, doubting whether dreams mattered at all. He swallowed. I know that feeling. The runner stood beside him, his voice low but steady. Then let your own reflection teach you how to trust again. Lyron nodded. He lifted his brush and began to paint in slow, sweeping arcs, long, unbroken motions that flowed like waves. The blue spread gently, mingling with the previous tones, creating fluid ribbons of sound that danced around the pillars. The hum grew deeper, cooler, softer, a sound of serenity and motion intertwined. When the sapphire finally sang, it was not loud. It was quiet, steady, endless. And for the first time, Lyron realized he wasn't simply restoring the sound, he was remembering himself. 3 pillars glowed now: emerald, ruby, sapphire, their colors merging in the air like auroras woven from melody. The harmony between them grew strong enough to ripple through the mist, pushing the fog back to reveal more of the landscape. In the distance, Lyron could see a faint outline of a city, tall spires, silent streets, windows reflecting no light. It waited, asleep, patient beneath the echo of their song. The runner noticed his gaze. That city, its silence is the reason these pillars lost their strength. When people stopped dreaming, these harmonies faded with them. Lyron felt a pang of sadness. Can they dream again? They can, the runner said, but they must remember why they dream, and that begins with you. Lyron turned back to the next pillar, amethyst. Its color was faint, shifting between lilac and shadow, pulsing weakly. He raised his brush, but stopped midway. This one feels different, quieter. The runner nodded. Because amethyst carries peace, not silence peace, and peace must be earned, not painted. Lyron lowered his hand, unsure. Then how do I awaken it? The runner smiled faintly. By resting. Lyron blinked, surprised. Resting? Even creation needs to breathe, the runner said gently. You've painted hope, heart, and trust. Now let stillness paint you. He sat down on the smooth ground and closed his eyes. Lyron hesitated, then followed, setting his brush across his knees. For a long time, neither spoke. The sound of the humming pillars surrounded them like slow rain. Each breath they took felt like another brushstroke, soft, invisible, healing. The dream itself seemed to slow with them. Colors dimmed, rhythms softened, and in that space between moments, peace arrived, quiet, deep, infinite. And then something remarkable happened. The amethyst pillar lit on its own. Its tone was the gentlest yet, soft and steady, blending with the others to create a chord that felt alive, whole, tender. The runner opened his eyes and smiled. You see, he whispered, peace doesn't ask to be painted, it only asks to be felt. Lyron exhaled a long, trembling breath. I think I understand now. 4 pillars shone brightly now. Each note fed into the emerald core above, which had begun to spin faster, its green light swelling with life. Lyron rose slowly, heart calm but alive with purpose. 2 left, he said. The runner nodded. Topaz and onyx, joy and courage. They are the most fragile and the most powerful. Lyron stepped forward, feeling the hum of color vibrate through his skin. The dream was alive again, but he could sense something shifting far in the distance. The silence was stirring, watching. He didn't fear it. Not anymore. Lyron and the runner stood before the 5th pillar. Topaz radiant, but dimmed beneath a thin veil of dust-like starlight. Its glow flickered in uneven pulses, like laughter that had forgotten how to escape the chest. Lyron's voice was soft, almost hesitant. It's trembling. The runner nodded, his expression contemplative. Joy often does. It's the first light to dim when the world grows uncertain. Lyron traced a finger along the pillar's surface. It felt warm, but fragile, like sunlight trapped under frost. For a moment, he saw flashes within the glass children, spinning in circles, faces painted with delight, skies alive with color. Then the images collapsed into shadow, replaced by echoes of silence. He swallowed hard. It's trying to remember, but something's blocking it. Fear, the runner said quietly. The shadow that follows joy when it's told it's too bright. Lyron lifted his brush. Then let's remind it. He dipped his brush into the reflection of all four glowing pillars, emerald, ruby, sapphire, amethyst, and then touched the topaz surface. A spark burst outward, gold and white, quick as lightning. Lyron smiled faintly. It's alive. He began to paint circles in the air, spiraling strokes that twined like ribbons of sunlight. Each stroke carried fragments of sound laughter, footsteps, the faint rush of wind through fields. The golden light gathered into a ring that expanded outward, forming waves of warmth that spread across the misty ground. Lyron laughed under his breath. It wasn't forced, it was real. And as he laughed, the pillar responded. The topaz pulsed brighter, stronger, glowing like sunrise breaking through morning fog. The hum shifted into a higher tone, bright, shimmering, full of rhythm. The runner's eyes reflected gold as he smiled. There it is, the song of joy. You remembered it for them. Lyron lowered his brush, still smiling. I think it remembered me first. The air around them grew brighter. All five pillars now alive, singing together in harmony. The emerald core above spun faster, casting green light across the dreamscape like a living aurora. But amid the beauty, Lyron noticed something new. A faint shadow forming beneath the final pillar onyx. And the last pillar loomed darker than the others, its surface matte and unreflective, swallowing the light around it. Where the others hummed, onyx was silent. Lyron approached cautiously. This one feels heavy. The runner's tone grew solemn. It carries courage, but not the kind you show others, the kind you need when you have nothing left. Lyron looked at the pillar, its silence pressing against his chest like a weight. He touched it lightly. Cold, still, empty. How do I paint courage, he whispered, when it refuses to be seen? The runner met his gaze. You don't paint courage, you face it. Lyron hesitated. Face what? Your shadow, the runner said. The dream remembers everything you've hidden, every doubt, every fear that whispered you weren't enough. Onyx can't sing until you do. The mist thickened, swallowing the pillars. The ground beneath Lyron cracked, revealing darkness that stretched endlessly downward. From within it, a voice rose his own, but deeper, sadder. Why keep painting? It asked. The world forgets beauty as fast as you make it. Every dream fades. Every color drains away. Lyron froze. The runner said nothing. The voice continued. You think you heal others through color? You're just covering the silence with noise. You're painting over your own emptiness. Lyron clenched his fists. That's not true. But his brush hand trembled. The shadow emerged fully now, a figure shaped like him, but its body was made of liquid darkness, face shifting between sorrow and fury. It held a cracked mirror in one hand, reflecting Lyron's eyes back at him. This is you, the shadow said. Every unfinished painting, every night you doubted your purpose, every time you smiled while feeling nothing inside. The runner's voice came through the fog, calm but firm. Don't run from it. Listen. Lyron's heart pounded. I don't want to. You must. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the voice that sings beneath it. Lyron closed his eyes. The shadow's words still burned inside him, but beneath them he could feel something small, steady. A pulse. A truth that refused to die. He lifted his brush, though his hand shook. And instead of painting color, he painted darkness. Each stroke drew lines of black light, not empty, but full of depth. The shadow flinched, retreating slightly. Lyron spoke softly, voice trembling but sincere. You're right, I've doubted. I've been afraid. I've wanted to stop. He painted another line, a curve that shimmered faintly. But every time I lifted this brush, I was saying, I still believe. Even when it hurts. Even when no one sees. The darkness wavered. The mirror cracked, then shattered. Light poured from within the shadow, not blinding, but steady, pure. It stepped closer and whispered, almost kindly, Then you understand. And then it dissolved, merging into the pillar. The sixth and final note joined the others, rich and grounding, anchoring all the higher tones with gravity. The harmony that emerged was breathtaking. Each pillar sang a note that joined into one vast living chord, a sound that felt older than creation itself. The emerald core above responded, its green light flaring brighter than ever before. It spun faster, drawing the colors of all six pillars into itself until it became a swirling sphere of prismatic radiance. Lyran and the runner stepped back as waves of sound rippled outward, shaking the mist away completely. The city in the distance woke. Windows lit up one by one, streets glowed, and figures began to move, not of flesh, but of light. Each carried fragments of color within them, their faces serene, their forms singing silently. The runner smiled softly. The emerald dream is whole again. The silence has remembered its own song. Lyran gazed in wonder, tears catching the reflection of green and gold around him. He whispered, "It's beautiful." "It's balance," the runner replied. "Harmony restored not through perfection, but through remembering that every note matters, even the quiet ones." Lyran looked up at the core, now shining like a second sun. "Is it over?" The runner shook his head gently. "No, Lyran, it's only begun. Each harmony you awaken opens the next path and the next truth." He turned toward the horizon, where a faint shimmer of violet light now rose beyond the hills. "The amaranth dream calls, the realm of eternal memory." Lyran nodded, feeling calm strength inside him. "I'll go." The world unfolded slowly. Lyran opened his eyes and found himself standing on a bridge of amaranth petals, thousands of them drifting weightless in the air. The petals glowed faintly, the color between rose and twilight, an eternal hue that never faded. Below him, there was no ground, no sea, no sky, only an expanse of memory. Shapes moved within it, silhouettes of lives long past, laughter suspended mid-echo, 1,000 heartbeats that had forgotten their owners. The runner stood beside him, his light dimmer now, as though out of reverence. "This is the amaranth dream," he said quietly, "the realm where forgotten memories rest. Everything that once was and still matters." Lyran's eyes reflected the swirling colors beneath them. Gold, violet, crimson, blue, shifting like thought itself. "It feels endless." "It is," the runner replied. "This place holds every song left unsung, every name unspoken, every face time could not keep. The sleepers above dream of tomorrow, but here, dreams remember yesterday." Lyran knelt and touched one of the petals. It was warm, and for a moment he heard a child's laughter echo softly, followed by a woman's hum, a lullaby. Then it faded. He looked up, moved. "They're all fragments of lives." The runner nodded. "Each petal is a memory that refused to die." A breeze passed over the bridge, carrying a whisper words so soft Lyran almost missed them. He turned toward the sound. There, at the far end of the petal bridge, stood a figure. Tall, cloaked in threads of silver and deep violet, they carried a lantern filled with slow-turning stars. Their face was serene, ancient, and eyes shone like reflections of the cosmos. The runner bowed slightly, the keeper of forgotten names. Lyran felt the air change around them, thicker, weighted with memory. The keeper approached, every step leaving trails of faint music that lingered behind. Their voice was calm, melodic, the kind that didn't echo, because it existed within the listener. "So, the dream painter has come." Lyran blinked. "You know me?" The keeper smiled faintly. "I knew you before you knew yourself. Every painter carries the echo of their first dream, and yours began here, among the petals." The runner glanced at Lyran, then back at the keeper. "He has restored harmony to the emerald dream. We now seek the path forward." The keeper's lantern flared softly. To move forward, one must remember what was left behind. The amaranth dream is not about balance. It is about truth. They gestured with their hand, and the air around them rippled like fabric in wind. Scenes emerged, fragments of light forming visions that hovered above the petals. Lyron saw himself a much younger version painting in a sunlit field. Each stroke of his brush glowed with pure joy, but as he watched, the colors began to fade. The sky darkened. The laughter he once heard became muffled. He took a slow breath. This was the first time I doubted. The keeper's voice was soft but piercing. You painted beauty, but feared no one would remember it. You began to believe that impermanence meant failure. Lyron's chest tightened. He remembered that day vividly, the silence after the rain, the loneliness in his own creation. I wanted it to last forever. And yet, the keeper said, you never understood that memory itself is forever. What fades from the eye does not fade from the dream. They waved their hand again, and the vision shifted. Now Lyron saw a vast hall of mirrors, each reflecting a version of himself. One painting in fury, another in sorrow, another staring blankly at a canvas of pure white. He turned to the keeper. Are these all me? They are the you that forgot, the keeper replied. The fragments of your art that never found their ending. You left them here, and they waited. The runner watched quietly, light flickering in the rhythm of the keeper's words. Lyron stepped closer to the nearest mirror. His reflection blinked, alive, conscious, and reached out as if to touch him. Their fingers met at the glass, and for a moment, Lyron felt everything his other selves had felt: exhaustion, longing, doubt. He whispered, voice shaking. I didn't mean to abandon them. The reflection smiled, not in blame but in understanding. Then remember us. The glass rippled, and the reflection melted into a stream of light that flowed into Lyron's chest. The keeper nodded approvingly. One fragment restored, many remain. Lyron moved from mirror to mirror, each revealing a different part of his forgotten heart. One showed him, painting in anger, his strokes wild, his tears hidden beneath rain. Another revealed his joy, a moment of creation that made him laugh out loud for no reason. Another showed him painting for someone else, a friend long gone, their memory flickering like candlelight. With each connection, he reclaimed a part of himself. The bridge beneath him brightened, and the petals began to sing soft, gentle tones that blended like whispered lullabies. The keeper's voice carried through it all. To remember is to forgive. To forgive is to restore. You cannot paint the dream if you have not painted your truth. Lyron paused at the last mirror, cracked, darkened, harder to see through. Within it stood a version of him he barely recognized, eyes tired, brush broken, standing before a blank void. The air around it felt heavy, colder than the rest. Lyron's voice lowered to a whisper. This one feels different. The keeper looked at the reflection with a mixture of sorrow and reverence. This is the painter who stopped dreaming. The day you almost let go of your art, he has waited the longest. Lyron stepped closer, but the reflection spoke first, voice, quiet, raw. Why did you leave? Lyron froze. The reflection continued. You walked away, from color, from sound, from yourself. Lyron's throat tightened, because it hurt too much to keep creating when no one listened. The reflection tilted his head, eyes shining with pain. And yet you still came here. So tell me, what keeps you painting now? Lyron hesitated. His mind echoed with all the faces, places, and dreams he'd seen: the laughter of the topaz pillar, the heartbeat of onyx, the harmony of the emerald core. He took a slow breath, because even if no one listens, the dream still does. The reflection smiled a slow, trembling smile and whispered, then paint. Lyron lifted his brush, but this time no light emerged, no color, only silence. He hesitated, then understood. He dipped the brush into his own shadow. Dark ink rose from beneath his feet, swirling upward, filling the bristles with an otherworldly gleam, not black but deep amaranth, shimmering with undertones of violet and gold. He painted a single line of broken mirror. Cracks spread like veins of light, connecting each fragment until the reflection shone brighter than glass. The other self stepped forward, merging into him completely. The bridge glowed brighter, the petals around him igniting in hues of pink and purple flame. The keeper lifted their lantern, smiling faintly. And so the forgotten name remembers itself. The lantern's stars swirled faster, aligning into constellations that matched the ones Lyran had seen in the Emerald Dream. Lyran whispered, "Was this what I came here to do?" The keeper's voice was both kind and grave. "No, dream painter. You came here to remember who you are." The bridge trembled gently, not in fear but in awakening. From below, the sea of memories began to rise, thousands of glowing petals, drifting upward like fireflies. Each carried faint voices, names, songs, laughter, all the fragments of dreamers the world had forgotten. They spiraled upward, surrounding Lyran in a vortex of remembrance. The keeper stepped forward, holding the lantern between them. "Now you must carry them," they said, "for every memory restored becomes your color to wield." Lyran reached out. The lantern's light entered his chest, a slow pulse, deep and rhythmic. He felt their weight, their warmth, their hope, and then silence. The bridge of petals was gone. The keeper and the runner stood beside him once more, but the world had changed. The sea of memory was no longer endless. It had taken shape an ocean beneath a sky painted in hues of dawn. The runner smiled softly. "You've given them rest, and in doing so, you've learned the color that never fades." Lyran looked down at his brush. The bristles now glowed with pure amaranth, a hue that shimmered like twilight remembering morning. He whispered, "The color of memory." The keeper bowed their head. "The color of truth." The morning after the dream storm was unusually still. No wind, no echo, no trace of color in the air, only that soft silver mist that seems to hold its breath before something vast arrives. Sonic stood at the edge of the dream painter's domain, the place where every color was born before flowing into dreamscapes. The mist curled around his ankles like liquid moonlight. He could hear faint murmurs, almost like whispers carried through brushstrokes. "Colors remember who painted them," one whisper sighed. "But dreams forget who dreamed them." He closed his eyes. For the first time in a long while, Sonic didn't rush forward. He listened. The ground hummed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Somewhere deep below, he could sense the resonance of the celestial canvases, the 6 great panels that shaped every dream world. Then he saw her, the dream painter. Her form shimmered like light bent through water, shifting between hues, never settling on one shape. When she moved, streaks of glowing pigment followed her fingertips, each trailing into nothingness. But there was weariness in her eyes, the kind that belongs to someone who's seen dreams fade and return for centuries. "Blue wanderer," she said softly, her voice like brush bristles sweeping over silk. "You've run far enough to find the truth. But are you ready to see it?" Sonic stepped closer, his shoes leaving faint streaks of blue energy in the mist. "If it'll help me fix this mess, then yeah, hit me with it." The painter raised her hand. A stroke of light arced through the air, and suddenly the world around them transformed into a living mural. They stood in a boundless expanse of swirling colors, a history painted across time. Sonic saw scenes unfold, dreamers sleeping under violet skies, rivers turning to ribbons of paint, vast cities made of mirrored clouds. And there in the center of it all, a shadow. A figure woven from the same pigment as the painter herself, but corrupted, the colors leaking away into gray. It was the unmade, the mirror-born force that devoured imagination itself. "This," the painter said, her eyes glinting with sadness, "is what was born when I tried to perfect creation." Sonic tilted his head. "You mean that thing came from you?" She nodded slowly. "Every artist leaves behind a reflection, the version of themselves that doubts, questions, resents. I painted the dream worlds to give peace to mortal minds." But my reflection wanted control, not harmony. It became the unmade, and for centuries it has been unraveling the dreams I tried to keep alive. Sonic clenched his fists. So this isn't just some monster, it's your shadow. Exactly. He paced in a slow circle, looking at the gray figure shifting in the mural's depths. Then how do we stop it? The painter extended her brush, and a soft arc of crimson light glowed across the horizon. By remembering that every reflection seeks balance, not destruction. But if it falls too deep into fear, it consumes what it cannot understand. You, Sonic, you carry the same energy I used to paint the first sky. That's why the dreams chose you. Sonic blinked. Wait, me? The guy who breaks sound barriers and eats chili dogs? The painter smiled faintly. Even light needs to move fast to reach its destiny. The mural shifted again, revealing a sprawling temple of color, the easel of eternity. It pulsed like a heart, each beat sending ripples through the dream realm. The unmade has breached the easel, she continued. It's trying to rewrite the origin to unpaint the first dream. If it succeeds, every color, every story, every whisper in sleep will vanish. Nothing will remain but blankness. Sonic's voice hardened. Then we stop it before that happens. The painter's gaze softened. You will not face it alone. The echoes you've awakened, the fox who remembers the light, the shadow who guards the silence, the emerald child of wind, they are fragments of the same dream energy. Together, you can restore the spectrum. Sonic nodded. Teamwork, that I can handle. They stepped through the mural, colors bending around them like threads in a loom. The mist cleared, revealing a crystalline bridge leading toward a vast floating palace, the easel itself, suspended above a sea of liquid starlight. Every stroke of its design shimmered with intention, golden arches swirling into spirals, blue veins glowing softly like memory. But dark streaks of gray ran through it now, pulsing outward like veins of decay. Sonic took a deep breath. Guess this is the part where we run. Not just run, said the painter. You must remember that speed without focus scatters color. Each step you take must be deliberate, guided by your pulse, your rhythm. He grinned. Then let's paint a masterpiece. The first step sent ripples down the bridge. With every stride, Sonic left behind trails of living blue that lit the way forward. The painter followed close behind, her brush weaving through the air, sealing fractures in the dream as they ran. Below them, the sea of starlight began to churn. Out of it rose shadow tendrils, black as ink, dripping with fragments of forgotten dreams. They lunged, trying to pull Sonic into the abyss. He jumped, spun, and dashed across the tendrils, his momentum creating loops of color that burst like fireworks. You're gonna have to try harder than that, he shouted, voice echoing through the void. The painter's brush swept in elegant arcs beside him, each stroke restoring the path that crumbled underfoot. Keep your rhythm, Sonic. The dream bends to will, not fear. A tendril slammed down behind them, shattering part of the bridge. Sonic looked back, saw the gap widen, then felt the instinct kick in. He sprinted faster, light trailing behind him like a comet tail, and vaulted over the break, landing on the other side with a thunderous crack. But just as he steadied himself, the air froze. A whisper cut through the stillness. You run from what you are. The unmade's voice was soft, echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. The sky darkened, and the palace ahead flickered as though reality itself were unsure whether to exist. Sonic's reflection appeared on the bridge before him, but it wasn't quite his. Its eyes were dull gray, its quills sluggish like wilted leaves. You think you can outrun emptiness? It murmured. Speed means nothing when you don't know where you're going. Sonic's chest tightened. He'd fought monsters, gods, machines, but never something that moved like him, spoke like him. The painter whispered, it's showing you your own reflection. Every dreamer must face theirs before crossing the easel. He stared at the gray copy. It moved when he moved, tilted its head when he did, but there was no light behind its gaze. I'm not you, Sonic said quietly. I'm what's left when you stop believing, the reflection replied. It lunged and the bridge shattered. Sonic fell through spiraling color, tumbling between layers of dream. He tried to regain control, spinning mid-air, the air rippling with blue streaks, but the reflection followed, mirroring every move. He hit the ground or something like it, and the impact sent shockwaves through a field of glass petals. When he looked around, he realized he was in a mirrored world, every horizon repeating endlessly. The reflection stood opposite him. You can't fix dreams. They'll always fade. You'll always be running. Sonic took a deep breath. Maybe, but I run towards something. You're just stuck standing still. He shot forward faster than sound, the glass beneath his feet exploding into shards of light. The reflection matched his speed, but Sonic wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to feel. Each loop, each spin, each burst of color, he could sense the dream shifting, bending toward light. Finally, he skidded to a stop, looked at the reflection and said softly, "You're not my enemy. You're my stillness. And I need that too." He held out his hand. The reflection hesitated, then dissolved into pure blue energy, flowing into him like a returning breath. The dream world trembled. The painter's voice echoed through the mist. "You've balanced your reflection. The easel awaits." Sonic looked up, eyes glowing faintly with that same inner light the painter carried. "Then let's finish this." He took one last glance at the mirrored horizon, then blurred into motion, streaking upward toward the palace of colors as the dream itself reshaped behind him. Because the truth wasn't about speed, it was about rhythm and the courage to face what stillness reveals. The easel of eternity hung suspended in a vast, breathing void, a floating temple made of translucent glass and liquid light. From afar, it looked delicate, like something a dreamer could shatter with a whisper. But as Sonic approached, racing along the final stretch of glowing bridge, he realized it pulsed with an ancient rhythm, the heartbeat of every color, every dream ever born. The bridge ended in a spiral staircase that shimmered like wet paint. Each step rippled beneath his shoes, leaving traces of blue that faded too quickly, as if the dream itself were struggling to remember him. Sonic slowed down for once. He could feel it, the stillness before a storm, that fragile moment where speed couldn't fix anything. The dream was watching him. From somewhere above, the dream painter's voice carried like a song half remembered. "This is where all beginnings meet their reflections, Sonic. The easel records every story, even those never told." Sonic looked up. "Then let's make sure this one ends right." He took a breath, then started climbing. With each step upward, the staircase revealed glimpses of worlds flickering along its edges. Memories, perhaps. A tiny child painting with stars. A fox chasing the tail of his own invention. A floating island blooming under the sunrise. He saw pieces of himself, too, laughter echoing against wind. Friendships that glowed brighter than any emerald. Battles fought not for glory, but to keep the light alive. They weren't just dreams. They were echoes. The easel wasn't a painting. It was a mirror of everything that ever mattered. When he reached the final step, the view opened into something so immense that even Sonic, who had seen galaxies from space, had to stop and take it in. The heart of the easel was a circular platform surrounded by rivers of molten color. They flowed like veins around a colossal floating canvas, suspended in midair. It rotated slowly, light pulsing through its surface like the shimmer of water touched by dawn. And there, coiled around it like a serpent of ink, the unmade. Its form was shifting, constantly collapsing and reforming. Faces emerged from its surface only to melt away. Its body was made of dripping darkness, each droplet falling into the rivers below and dulling the colors into gray. At its core, Sonic saw something or someone, a faint silhouette struggling to stay visible within the shadows. It was the painter, or rather what was left of her reflection, the part she had lost. Sonic's voice was steady. "So that's you, the shadow of every doubt." The unmade turned, and for a moment, its surface rippled like disturbed ink. 1,000 voices spoke through it, layered over one another. "You shouldn't be here. Dreams are not meant for the awake. You run, but you never arrive. Sonic grinned, though his heart pounded. Yeah, maybe not, but I always show up when it counts. He kicked forward, landing on the platform in a burst of light. The impact sent blue ripples across the easel's surface, scattering the gray mist. The unmade hissed, retreating slightly. Its edges quivered, absorbing fragments of color as if feeding. You bring light, but you are just another pigment waiting to fade. Sonic steadied his stance, energy crackling around him. Funny thing about color, it looks dull until you move fast enough. The first strike came without warning. The unmade flung a tendril of pure shadow across the platform, slicing through the air. Sonic ducked, feeling the static whip past his ear, then dashed forward. Every step left a trail of blue light that stitched the cracks on the platform back together. The unmade lunged again, its shape widening into a tidal wave of black ink. Sonic leapt, spinning into a homing burst of color that tore through the shadow's chest. The explosion painted the air in a shockwave of turquoise and white. For a moment, Sonic thought he'd actually heard it, but then the colors he'd created began to bleed. The unmade absorbed them, reshaping into something even larger, its voice growing clearer, colder. Everything you create belongs to me. Every dream ends in silence. Sonic skidded backward, breathing hard. Guess I'll just have to be louder then. He blurred into motion, circling the platform in tight arcs. Blue lightning cracked behind him, his motion sketching circles of energy that formed a glowing sigil around the canvas. The painter's voice echoed faintly through the storm of sound. Sonic, the unmade feeds on color freely given, but resists rhythm. Move with purpose, not rage. Turn your speed into song. Sonic closed his eyes mid-run, letting instinct take over. His movements became a rhythm, faster, smoother, harmonizing with the hum of the easel itself. The sigil brightened, forming patterns that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. He could feel it, the dream aligning with him. Then the unmade screamed. It lashed out, but the attack bent away from Sonic's trail, repelled by the resonance. For the first time, the darkness recoiled, unable to consume the rhythm. Sonic grinned. Guess you can't eat the beat. He dove straight through the unmade's chest, his trail carving a streak of radiant blue through its form. The shadow shattered like glass, but only briefly. As it reformed, the painter appeared beside him, light radiating from her fingertips. Her brush glowed brighter than ever, though her form flickered with fatigue. You're holding it off, she said softly, but we can't destroy it. Not like this. You must paint it back into balance. Sonic's eyebrows furrowed. You mean fix it instead of fighting it? The painter nodded. It's not your enemy. It's my forgotten half, the reflection of fear. Only creation can silence destruction. She pressed her glowing hand to his chest, and for a moment, Sonic saw visions flashing behind his eyes every time he'd lifted someone from despair. Every time he'd chosen to believe in hope over power. Your light isn't meant to burn, she whispered. It's meant to guide. The unmade shrieked again, but this time, its voice carried something almost human pain, confusion, longing. The shadows convulsed, forming eyes, hands, faces of forgotten dreamers reaching out. Sonic's throat tightened. They weren't monsters. They were people who had lost their color, their purpose. Okay, he murmured, voice steady. Then let's give them something to believe in. He took off once more this time, not as a blur of chaos, but as a painter of motion. His trails of blue spun through the air in spirals and waves, weaving patterns that merged with the painter's brushstrokes. Together they began to repaint the sky above the easel. Each stroke restored fragments of dream, a feather here, a spark there, shards of forgotten music drifting through the air. The rivers of color around them began to brighten again, feeding back into the canvas. The unmade wailed as its shadowy limbs melted away under the light. Its voice cracked, now trembling between rage and sorrow. You can't erase what was born from fear. The painter's voice answered, strong and clear. We're not erasing you, we're remembering you. Suddenly, the platform beneath them fractured. The easel began to spin faster, its rivers of color twisting into a vortex. Sonic stumbled, caught his balance, then realized what was happening. The easel was opening, revealing a core of raw, unformed light. "The heart of the dream," the painter gasped. "It's where all things begin." The unmade dove toward it, dragging its massive form through the vortex. Sonic's instinct screamed at him to chase, but the painter caught his arm. "You can't just run into it. The heart will only respond to truth. You must carry your reflection with you." Sonic looked down at his glowing hand, still faintly tinged with the blue energy from his earlier reflection. "Guess that's what it means to face yourself, huh?" The painter smiled faintly. "Every artist paints twice, once with color, once with courage." Sonic nodded. "Then let's finish the masterpiece." He turned toward the vortex, crouched low, and took a breath so deep it felt like the first one he'd ever taken. The world around him vibrated, color, sound, and wind blending into one perfect rhythm. Then he sprinted straight into the light. Inside the vortex, everything was sound, not noise sound, a cosmic hum, pure and endless. The deeper Sonic ran, the less he saw and the more he felt flashes of laughter, stars being born, dreamers exhaling hope. Then he saw it, the unmade's core, swirling in the distance like a black sun. Sonic leaned forward, blue flames erupting around him. Every step brought him closer to it, but the shadows fought back, shaping illusions from his memories, failures, regrets, fears. He saw friends fading, colors dying, worlds breaking apart. "You can't save them all," whispered the unmade, its voice coming from inside his mind. "You run because you're afraid to stop and see what's already gone." Sonic slowed for a moment, and the light dimmed. The unmade loomed closer, feeding on his hesitation. But then he remembered something. The painter's words, the rhythm, the stillness. He closed his eyes and smiled. "Yeah, maybe I can't save everything, but I can always keep trying." With that, he accelerated again, faster than he'd ever moved, his body dissolving into pure motion, pure color. The blue aura around him ignited, transforming into streaks of radiant white, gold, and crimson, the full spectrum reborn. He became a living brushstroke, a comet of creation racing not away from fear, but through it. The deeper Sonic ran, the more reality unraveled around him. Colors no longer had names. Shapes no longer held form. The dream dissolved into pure energy, raw, unspoken creation. He could feel the heartbeat of the universe in his chest now, pulsing like a drum made of light. Each thump sent ripples through the void, like brushstrokes across an infinite page. Ahead of him, the unmade's core pulsed in the dark, a trembling orb of swirling gray, devouring everything that touched it. The black sun screamed soundlessly, sucking fragments of light, memory, and song into its hollow center. Sonic's voice echoed through the emptiness, steady and brave. "You've taken enough, pal. Time to give some of it back." The unmade's form twisted in rage, unfolding into a massive storm of shadows. Its voice rolled like thunder through the void. "You don't understand. There is no back. There is only the end of color, the silence after creation." Sonic darted sideways as the storm lashed out with tendrils of black energy. They crashed into the dream's walls, splintering into echoes of broken laughter, half-forgotten stories, and fading stars. He could hear the painter's faint voice from somewhere beyond the maelstrom, distant, strained but still guiding him. "Sonic, don't fight it. Reflect it. Let its chaos show you what it fears." He took a deep breath and slowed. For once, he didn't push forward. He listened. The storm around him howled with loneliness. Every roar, every pulse of darkness wasn't anger. It was grief. The unmade wasn't destroying because it hated creation. It was doing so because it couldn't belong to it. It was the silence after the brushstroke, the blank space between dreams. Sonic closed his eyes. "You're not the end," he whispered. "You're the part that makes beginnings matter." The unmade froze. Its storm stuttered, faltered. The shadows rippled uncertainly, flickering with flashes of light. Sonic opened his eyes again, glowing with a soft, blue-white radiance. He held out his hand. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's finish the painting." The unmade recoiled, writhing as though burned. "You would share your color with me?" "Yeah," Sonic said. "Because if you're the shadow, I'm the light. We're both part of the same picture." The dream trembled. The unmade screamed again, but the sound was no longer terrifying. It was human, a cry from something that had never been understood. And then it lunged forward, not in attack, but in surrender. The collision was silent. The gray energy of the unmade wrapped around Sonic like smoke, spiraling into him, fusing with the blue glow that already surrounded his body. For a heartbeat, there was only stillness, the hush before color is born. Then, the explosion. A wave of light tore through the void, brighter than any sun, washing away the shadows in a single radiant breath. The gray dissolved into white, then burst into countless colors: red, gold, violet, silver, emerald, azure. Each hue carried a memory, a story, a life once lost to fear. The painter appeared within the storm of light, floating effortlessly, her form now complete. Half her body shimmered in soft gold, the other half in gentle gray. She smiled, calm, serene, whole. "You did it," she said softly. "You accepted both sides." Sonic looked down at himself. His quills flickered with faint streaks of silver now, running alongside the blue. His aura pulsed like a living heartbeat of the dream. "So this is what balance feels like," he murmured. "Not all speed, not all stillness, just flow." The painter nodded. "You've become the bridge between motion and memory. The dream runner." He laughed quietly. "Got a nice ring to it." All around them, the easel began to rebuild itself, its rivers of color flowing upward, reforming the platforms and towers. The shattered dreamscapes started returning. One after another, lush forests of emerald mist, floating cities of rose quartz, oceans that shimmered with music instead of water. Dreamers across the world stirred in their sleep, their minds suddenly flooded with light and warmth. Forgotten songs returned to the wind. Broken memories mended themselves with quiet laughter. The painter turned toward the glowing heart of the easel. "Every dream you've saved will remember your rhythm. When mortals sleep, they will feel your motion in their hearts, the reminder that every end carries a beginning." Sonic's grin softened. "Guess I'll be part of the lullaby now, huh?" "More than that," she said. "You'll be the pulse that keeps it alive." For a long moment, neither spoke. The dream was calm, the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but full. A silence that listened. Then faintly, Sonic heard footsteps. Familiar ones. Out of the horizon came three figures, flickering like memories reborn. A fox with twin tails, a shadow that glimmered like obsidian flame, and a tiny emerald spirit made of swirling air. "Tails? Shadow? Zephyr?" Sonic blinked, smiling wide. They nodded, their forms partly translucent but bright. Tails laughed. "Looks like you did it, big guy." Shadow crossed his arms, though a smirk tugged at his lips. "Took you long enough." The Emerald Child tilted her head, voice soft and melodic. "The dream remembers its guardians." Sonic chuckled. "Couldn't have done it without you all." The painter's brush hovered in midair, glowing brighter. She traced a final line across the air, and the figures of Sonic's friends began to fade, drifting back toward the waking world. "They must return," she said gently. "The dream has ended for now, but its rhythm will keep them connected." Sonic turned toward her. "What about me?" "You," she said, her smile warm, "belong to both worlds now." The easel pulsed once more, and a doorway opened in the air, a swirling portal of gold and azure, its edges painted with light that seemed to hum a melody. The painter gestured toward it. "When mortals sleep and dream of motion, you'll be their guide. When they wake and run toward purpose, your rhythm will echo in their steps. That is your gift and your promise." Sonic looked back at the endless horizon of color, then toward the doorway. He felt something deep in his chest. Not sadness, not joy, something in between. a feeling of completion. He smiled softly. Guess I'll see you in the next dream. The painter inclined her head. And I'll be there in every color you create. He gave a small salute, then stepped under the doorway. The world dissolved into light again. When Sonic opened his eyes, he found himself standing in a quiet meadow at dawn. Dew shimmered on the grass. The sky was a gradient of pink and blue, the first rays of sunlight stretching across the horizon. Birds sang softly in the distance, not songs of triumph, but of peace. He looked down. A faint streak of silver still ran along the edges of his quills. When he touched it, a warm hum vibrated through his fingertips, the heartbeat of the dream. He smiled to himself. Guess I'm not done running yet. He crouched slightly, feeling the breeze tug against him. Then, with a grin that could rival the sunrise, he whispered to the wind, "Let's paint the morning." And just like that, he was gone, a streak of blue and silver cutting across the waking world, leaving trails of color that shimmered in the air long after he'd vanished. Far behind him, in the realm of dreams, the painter watched from her restored tower of color. Her canvas glowed faintly, reflecting a single blue line that curved upward, a mark that would never fade. She whispered to herself, her voice barely louder than the hum of light. Even in silence, motion continues. Even in darkness, color remembers. And even in dreams, the runner keeps painting. The easel pulsed once more, steady and alive, and the dream faded softly into eternity, not ending, but resting, like a heartbeat between brushstrokes. The dream world was unraveling. Not in an explosion, not in fire or chaos, but in silence. Every ripple of color that once flowed through the painted skies began to fade into pale mist. The towers of light, the rivers of glowing pigment, the dream creatures that had danced between stars, all of it dimmed like the last hues of twilight being washed away by rain. In the center of that dissolving expanse stood the dream painter, his brush trembling in his hand. The canvas beneath his feet, a landscape once living, breathing, was beginning to crack apart like glass. Each fracture hummed with the echo of every dream ever painted. And somewhere across the dissolving horizon, Sonic ran. He wasn't just moving through the dream anymore. He was part of it. Every step sent faint ripples of blue through the mist. Every turn of his spin left a swirl of color in the fading air. But his usual grin, his easy confidence, was gone. His eyes, sharp, bright, and knowing, looked toward the fading painter with quiet resolve. "Hey!" he called, his voice carrying across the emptiness. "You're not giving up now, are you?" The painter didn't answer right away. His fingers brushed the air where colors used to live. I used too much light," he murmured, his tone soft, almost apologetic. "Dreams burn fast when they're too bright." Sonic skidded to a stop beside him, the wind from his speed kicking up faint trails of blue and gold. "Then we make more. You've got the brush, don't you?" The painter looked at him, eyes weary but curious. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not about easy," Sonic said, smirking faintly. "It's about moving forward, always." He looked around, the emptiness, the dissolving patterns, the cold light of an unpainted world. "This place," Sonic added, "isn't gone yet. It's waiting for the next stroke." The painter followed Sonic's gaze. In the distance, fragments of dreams floated like drifting stars, memories of every chapter they had crossed. The child's laughter in the glowing meadow, the forgotten city beneath the waves, the time-shifted forest of music and echoes. All of them shimmered faintly, as if remembering their own existence. And in that instant, the painter realized something. The dream wasn't dying. It was waiting to be reimagined. The two began walking through the empty expanse. Every few steps, Sonic would tap his foot against the ground, creating small pulses of color. The painter followed each pulse with a stroke of his brush, letting the energy bloom into shapes. Together they began to rebuild, not by force, but by rhythm. A new dawn of hues unfurled under their feet. Golden rivers trickled again, weaving through the white like veins of light. Trees with glass leaves sprouted around them, each one humming a soft tone when touched by wind. Far above, the fragments of dream stars gathered into a spiral, a living constellation. Sonic tilted his head up, watching the stars form trails. "Now this is more like it," he said. But the painter was quiet, his brush slowed mid-stroke. There was something deeper, something pulling at the edges of his awareness. "The balance is still off," he said under his breath. "We've restored the dream, but the shadow hasn't faded." And then, as if in answer, the world darkened. A low hum, familiar and dreadful, rippled through the air. The color drained again, not from overuse, but from something consuming it. From the heart of the newly painted horizon, a fracture opened, a long, jagged tear leaking black ink into the dreamscape. Sonic's fists clenched. "Guess we're not done yet." The ink spilled like smoke, twisting and curling until it formed something humanoid, but distorted, a reflection of the painter himself. But his eyes glowed silver, and his brush dripped shadow instead of light. It spoke with the painter's voice, but slower, colder, as if every word had to crawl out of its throat. "You can't erase me. I am every failure you painted over, every fear you never signed your name to." The dream painter stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You're the forgotten sketches," he said softly, "the dreams that never reached the canvas." The shadow grinned. "Exactly. And now I'll finish what you started." It raised its brush, and with a swift stroke, darkness slashed across the sky. The new dawn shattered again. Sonic darted ahead instantly, his form blurring into motion. He leapt through the collapsing hues, slicing through falling shards of dream glass with spin dashes that left glowing trails behind. But every time he broke through the ink, it reformed. Thicker, heavier, louder. The dream painter painted frantically beside him, each brushstroke trying to hold the pieces of the dream together. "It's feeding on what we create," he shouted. "The more color we add, the stronger it grows." Sonic turned, dodging a bolt of black energy. "Then we gotta change the rhythm." "What?" "Don't fight it with color. Paint with silence." The painter blinked. Silence? That wasn't how creation worked. But then he remembered. The stillness between brushstrokes, the pauses that gave life meaning, the white spaces that made color breathe. He exhaled, slow and calm, and drew his brush through the air. No color spilled from it this time, only a whisper, a soft vibration, like the heartbeat of emptiness. The black ink hesitated, its movement faltered, as if uncertain how to fight something so quiet. Sonic picked up the rhythm instantly. He dashed in circles around the shadow, his blue trails forming an enormous spiral, enclosing it within a loop of motion and silence. The painter added strokes of stillness at each turn, sealing the loop. The ink creature roared, its voice echoing like every unspoken word of an unfinished dream. It lunged at the painter, but Sonic intercepted, moving faster than sight. A burst of energy erupted where they collided, light and dark twisting together, like two halves of a broken melody finally meeting. And then, silence. The ink shattered into fragments that scattered like ashes, absorbed by the canvas of the world. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air shimmered faintly, like the afterglow of a dream remembered upon waking. Then Sonic looked at the painter with that trademark half grin. "Guess even shadows need a little light sometimes." The painter smiled back, his voice barely above a whisper. "And light needs space to shine." They stood together at the heart of the dream world, now quiet, serene, and balanced. The stars above began to pulse in slow rhythm, as if matching the painter's heartbeat. Each pulse painted a new constellation, tracing unseen stories across the night. But something unexpected began to happen. Sonic's form flickered, like a reflection on water disturbed by wind. The painter noticed immediately. "You're fading," he said, his tone tightening. Looks like my time here's up, Sonic replied, his voice steady but wistful. Dreams don't last forever, right? The painter shook his head. You're part of this one. Yeah, but you've got what you need now. Sonic looked around. The world reborn, the silence balanced with color, the stars humming their lullaby. You don't need a runner anymore, he said softly. You've learned to make the dream move on its own. The painter stepped closer, almost as if to reach out, but his hand froze midair. He realized Sonic was right. The dream was now alive. It no longer needed its muse to keep spinning. I'll see you in the next one, Sonic said, giving that easy grin, the kind that made every goodbye feel like a new beginning. And with that, he took one last step forward and dissolved into a streak of blue light that scattered into the sky, merging with the stars. The painter lowered his brush. Around him, the world was still, but not empty. Every color, every silence, every echo of Sonic's laughter remained within the canvas. He dipped his brush one last time, and with the calmest, gentlest motion, painted a single final line across the horizon. It glowed faintly, forming the symbol of infinity, a mark that shimmered between waking and dreaming. And as the dream began to settle into its eternal rhythm, the painter whispered to the sleeping world, "Every dream ends, but the story keeps painting itself." The dream had quieted. Where once there was chaos, motion and melody, shadow and light, now there was peace, the kind of peace that hums softly beneath the heartbeat of a world reborn. The dream painter stood upon a stretch of pale gold, his brush resting loosely at his side. Every inch of the horizon shimmered like dew over parchment, waiting for the next stroke. But for the first time, he felt no urgency to paint. He could still hear faint echoes of Sonic's laughter, woven into the wind like fragments of a song. It wasn't a haunting sound. It was liberating. A reminder that some dreams aren't meant to be kept. They're meant to move. He looked up. The sky above was an open canvas of layered color, deep indigo merging with amber, whispers of violet threading through pale silver. It was the color of transition, the moment between night and morning. And then faintly, he noticed something. The stars were forming new shapes, not constellations as before, but stories. Each shimmered with its own hue and rhythm. One looked like a blue runner streaking across waves of time. Another resembled a city blooming from petals of light. Another, a pair of hands holding a brush in a flame. Each one, a memory of the journey. Each one, a dream reborn as a legend. The painter began to walk. The landscape changed softly with his steps. Fields of lavender dreams rolling into dunes of crimson imagination, then into seas of silver reflection. Every breath he took rippled through the fabric of this world, setting the colors to dance. As he wandered, he thought of what Sonic had said. Dreams don't last forever. But perhaps they weren't supposed to. Perhaps dreams were bridges, connecting what was imagined with what could be real. He reached a ridge overlooking a valley of light. There, a village shimmered into form, not a grand palace or a mystical city, but a humble collection of homes built from pure imagination. Each window glowed with soft color, each door opened to a unique dreamscape. He descended slowly, the soft hum of the world surrounding him like a lullaby. Children's laughter echoed in the air. He turned and saw them. Dream children, beings of pure essence, shaped from the world he and Sonic had rebuilt. They were painting too, each with tiny brushes that glowed in different hues: mint, rose, cerulean, amber. One of them looked up, smiling shyly. "Are you the painter?" He hesitated. "I was," he said, "but maybe now I'm just one of you." The child tilted her head. "We've been painting stories." He knelt beside her. "Show me." The girl turned her small canvas toward him. It was messy, wild, a blur of color and movement, but there in the middle he saw something that made his breath hitch. A streak of blue. Not paint, light. "Who's that?" he asked softly. The girl smiled wider. The runner. He keeps the dreams moving when we rest. The painter felt something tighten in his chest, a mixture of joy and ache. Sonic hadn't vanished. He had become part of the dream's rhythm, the essence of motion, the eternal beat between creation and silence. He spent what felt like years, or moments. Time didn't behave normally here, teaching the new dreamers how to balance color and stillness. Every dream breathes, he told them. Don't paint too much light. Leave space for it to rest. They listened, learning to weave silence into their art, laughter into their shadows, rhythm into their stillness. Under his guidance, the valley bloomed into something more than a dreamscape. It became a living culture. Music, painting, and movement became one art form. Some dreamers used light to sculpt melodies. Others painted motion, lines that moved on their own, like brushstrokes dancing through the air. Some built structures that shimmered differently depending on who looked at them, reflecting the observer's deepest emotion. It was a world of creation, reflection, and rebirth. And within it, Sonic's influence pulsed like a hidden drumbeat. Every gust of wind carried a faint hum, a rhythm like footsteps racing through eternity. One evening, or what passed for evening, in this painted world, the dream painter stood again at the ridge. The dream village glowed below, alive with color and laughter. He closed his eyes, and for the first time he felt tired, not in body, but in soul. The kind of tiredness that comes when a creation is finally complete. The wind brushed his hair softly, and within it, a whisper. You kept painting. He opened his eyes. A faint shimmer moved beside him, blue light taking the shape of a silhouette, barely visible, but familiar beyond all measure. Sonic, not as flesh, not as spirit, but as the pulse of movement itself, an echo formed from the energy of everything they had built together. You really thought I'd be gone for good? The voice teased, light and fast. The painter smiled faintly. I hoped you'd come back. Didn't go anywhere, Sonic replied. Dreams don't end, remember? They just change who's running them. The painter looked toward the village. They're painting now. They don't need me anymore. Sure they do, Sonic said, flickering closer. They need someone to remind them why they paint. Someone to teach them how to start again when the color fades. The painter laughed softly. You sound wiser than I remember. Guess hanging around infinity gives a guy perspective. For a while they said nothing, just stood there watching the dream world breathe. The stars pulsed in rhythm with the distant hum of Sonic's essence. Then Sonic said, You know what this reminds me of? What? The first time we met, when everything was falling apart and you thought the dream was ending? The painter nodded. I remember. Now look at it, Sonic continued. You didn't fix it. You changed it. You gave it space to grow. He paused, the shimmer of his outline flickering slightly. That's the real art, painter. Knowing when to step back and let the next dream begin. The painter exhaled, watching the horizon shift from gold to silver. Then maybe it's time for me to rest too. Maybe, Sonic said, his grin audible even through the fading light. But something tells me this world will keep calling you back. Dreams always do. The blue light dimmed gently, fading into the stars once more. And the dream painter whispered, Goodbye, my friend. The wind carried back an echo, soft and warm. Not goodbye, just see you on the next run. Years passed, or perhaps seconds. Time in the dream world was a song, and no two notes ever sounded the same. The painter's legend became a story the children told when the stars shimmered brighter than usual. They said he painted the sky, that his brush left trails of color for the dream runners to follow. Some believed he still walked among them, disguised as one of their own, correcting colors, balancing silence, keeping the rhythm steady. And every now and then, when a dreamer painted too brightly or too fast, a streak of blue would dash across their canvas, setting everything back in harmony. No one ever saw who it was, but everyone knew. One last dawn arrived. The painter, older now, though still ageless, stood upon the same ridge where everything had begun. In his hand, a new brush, its bristles woven from starlight. He looked upon the world one final time. The villages had grown into cities of dreams. The skies were filled with luminous dancers. Every surface hummed with life. He smiled. Then he dipped his brush into the air, into the essence of all creation, and drew a single, sweeping line across the horizon. The sky burst into color, blues and golds, purples and silvers, flowing like oceans made of light. At the center of that explosion, a faint sound echoed, a laugh, fast and free, racing beyond the limits of time. And with that, the painter placed his brush down. The dream was whole, the rhythm eternal, the runner everlasting, the painter at peace. And above the world, written in light, glowed the final words he would ever paint. And so the dream painter rests his canvas now complete, his colors eternal. Every dream, every brushstroke, every step of the runner lives on, in the quiet rhythm of sleep. As you drift away tonight, remember, some dreams are painted in color, but the most beautiful ones are painted in peace. Thank you for joining this journey through the Dream Painter. If this story brought calm to your night, leave a star below, share your light, and return next time where another dream awaits, just beyond the edge of sleep.